Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Skew Zone. It is week 2. We are now live on the Skew YouTube channel and StreamYard. Skew, a proud member of the TSPN and a proud member of the flagship show. So that is fantastic. We're looking forward to a great show today. It is Thanksgiving Eve. We have a great talk today. We have many guests coming on, and we'll get into those shortly. Got some Skew contributors and whatnot. So thanks for tuning in. You can find us at Skew Pod on Twitter and Instagram, along with timeskew.com on the internet. Find great content of fantasy football and NFL from all 32 teams. So yeah, we're covering all of our bases here, and we did cover the XFL when that was even a thing too. So that is awesome. And now we will be able to answer some questions this evening as well. So if you do have fantasy football questions, get them in. You could ask him. We will be here 7 to 8 Central approximately every Wednesday for an hour on Skew's YouTube and StreamYard, as I did say. So feel free to come hang out every Wednesday. Come join us. It's always a good time. I will be answering questions if there is time, if time permits to that. You could catch us tomorrow on Thanksgiving for a half hour. We're doing a fantasy special Thanksgiving episode of our fantasy kickoff show. I'm not sure if Pride will be on that or just myself yet, but we will be live at 10 a.m. Central Time tomorrow. I know there's only 2 games now, but there could still be a lot of questions out there for the amount of talent that goes around those 4 fantasy football teams. So, and then on Sunday we'll be back at 10 a.m. Central Time as always, an hour show there, 10 to 11. Pride and myself, I'm sure. So today's episodes we're going to do Turkey Day duds and studs, who we think might pop off and who we think might be a dud on Thanksgiving Day. So we'll get into that. We're also going to ask our guests, who are 2 writers and a former German football leaguer. We'll get into more in a little bit later, but we got a lot of guests to come, so that's a good one. Andy Doe, he's been on the show before, Andy Doe, and we already have guests or questions coming in here. I'll get to your questions quickly, Mr. Ben Simmons, and we have one from Twitter as well. So we have 2 questions, but yeah, we have a writer's wrap. We got Steven from the Jaguars coming on at 7:40. We got Zach Buss at 7:30. We got Andy Doe at 7:20. So we got a great show lined up. Andy Doe is a German football player. He's going to help us out with Arizona Cardinals advice in German football life over there a little bit. So other than that, we did update our holiday store, our store for the holidays. Be sure to get your holiday merch at timeskew.com today. Some great stocking stuffers such as face masks and coffee mugs, along with great gear to keep you warm with pullover hoodies and crew neck sweatshirts. Find this and more fantasy football gear today and use promo code STREAM to save 10% off at checkout. timeskew.com/shop to find your holiday needs today. We have plenty of great podcasts in the TSPN as well, so be on the lookout for those on timeskew.com. We have Fugazi Sports, Chain Clankers, which covers Ultimate Frisbee and Frisbee Golf. Cleve and Me covers wrestling. Be sure to check that out if you're a wrestling fan. Big Rican covers all Ohio and New York-based podcasts. All sports and those. Cardboard and Cracker Jacks and Buccateers are my own. Sports and baseball, card collecting, jersey collecting, Buccaneers. You can find us on Twitter at Buccateers or at Cracker Jacks Pod for Cardboard and Cracker Jacks. The Armchair Quarterback Show is a proud member of the TSPN, and they're a proud member of CBS Sports, and you could catch them on CBS Sports in the Florida, Jacksonville area every weekday morning, 8 to 9. 8 to 10 Eastern, 7 to 9 here on YouTube or on Facebook, and they're also on their own app. So be sure to go check out the Armchair Quarterback Show, and of course the Fathership Show, the Skew podcast, Skew You segment. But first, before we get into Skew You, we have a couple fantasy questions here. First from Ben Simmons. Stanford or Dalton? I'm sure my man means Matt Stafford or Andy Dalton. And that's interesting as they both play on Thanksgiving. It'll be exciting to see. It's funny you ask this because in my Skew You upcoming segment, we will be talking about one of these guys. But I'd roll with Matthew Stafford for sure here. I think Stafford had a bad game last week, had around 8 points in standard league format. I think his upside's really high against a lackluster Texans defense that just doesn't have the defensive backs to carry them much in this one. I believe that the Detroit Lions will have quite the Thanksgiving day. I think they're going to do really good tomorrow. So I think it's going to be fantastic. I think they're going to have their hands full, the Texans defense. Look out for Matthew Stafford. I'd start him over Dalton for sure. And now leading into that, or Skew You segment, we're going to list, remember, Skew You means these guys screwed you last week. You played them. They got you 0. And now you're not going to play them this week. And they might say, hey, screw you for not playing me. I'm going to have a go game. So 3 duds from last week who you may have played. They done poorly. You may bench them this week. And then they may have success, turn around and say Skew You in week 12. So we'll see what's going on. Once again, Ben Simmons, if you are the point guard, thank you. Probably not, but we do appreciate your question. Skew You. Here we go. My 3 top Skew You candidates for week 12 of fantasy football. Travis Fulgham. He's a double Skew You because he's had 2 bad weeks in a row now. The past 2 weeks combined, he has 2 catches for 15 yards, combined on 14 targets from Carson Wentz, who can't seem to throw a damn football. The Lord knows who, even if Rosie O'Donnell was out there, a big old target for him, I don't think he could get the ball anywhere right now. It's just that bad for Carson Wentz. It's just a little hard to watch. So Travis Fulgham, 2 catches for 15 yards and 14 targets the previous 2 weeks. Does he get going against a vulnerable Seahawks secondary on Monday Night Football? A lot of people are not going to start Travis Fulgham because of his past 2-week performances. He's had either 0.7 or 0.8, unless you're in PPR leagues. He's probably had 1.7 and 1.8. Half-point PPR leagues just north of 1. It's really not been good, but they do face a vulnerable Seahawks secondary, one of the worst in the NFL. Travis Fulgham could definitely be a guy who says, Skew You, you're going to bench him this week because he got 0 the past 2 weeks. I know I'm going to bench him, and I'm going to be like, damn it, after that Monday Night Football game, I'm going to be like, why the hell did I not start Travis Fulgham? I just know he's going to have a big game. He's going to tell me, Skew You. Next up, we got Rob Gronkowski, Mr. Gronk, former WWE superstar and New England Patriots tight end. Gronk's going to have a decent game this week, I suppose, against the Chiefs defense, who is susceptible to letting up big plays against tight ends this year, actually. We'll get into more of that in a little bit here. But Gronk caught 2 of 6 passes thrown his way for 25 yards this past Monday night against the Rams. Obviously, the Rams defense is pretty good this year. They're rated pretty good this year. Can he find the red zone this Sunday versus the Chiefs? And can he tell those who benched him to Skew You? It'll be interesting. We know tight ends are pretty reliant on touchdowns unless it's an elite tight end such as Travis Kelce or George Kittle when he's playing. Rob Gronkowski this Sunday, to me, though, he gets back in the end zone. No, I'm not just saying that for the hat I'm wearing. I'm saying that because the Buccaneers, Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, they're in the spotlight once again. They know how big of a game it is this upcoming Sunday. I think they're really going to want to show people, hey, here we go. Show's on the road. Let's strap up. We got Kansas City, and win or lose, the Bucs are going to go down fighting. I do think Rob Gronkowski is a classic Gronk game-esque kind of, at least 50 yards, at least a touchdown. We'll be seeing more of the week 6 through 10 Gronk than we did the week 11 and 12 Gronk, perhaps. And then number 3, this kind of relates again. Let me show it again. We had Ben Simmons ask earlier, Matthew Stafford, I'm guessing it ain't Stanford. It ain't Sanford and Son either. Matthew Stafford or Andy Dalton. And I went with Matthew Stafford. Stafford completed 18 of 33 passes for 178 yards last Sunday and no touchdowns. Obviously not appealing there. Will he keep a turkey tradition alive and have a big game against Houston tomorrow? Listen, I don't see how he doesn't have a big game. I know he's a little injured. I know his thumb's a little hurt, but I think Matthew Stafford is going to have a big bounce back game. He's had really good fantasy value so far this year, and I don't think that last week's slow game with an injured hand slows him up any. I think he's out to prove people wrong. I think tomorrow he's really going to come out firing. I think he's going to have a big game on Thanksgiving. I really don't see Matt Stafford having a bad game. Where Andy Dalton, on the other hand, and I know he's not a part of this question as it's a Skew You segment, I just don't see Andy Dalton having too big of a game. I don't think that Cowboys offense gets going tomorrow. I think they're riding their high horse a little bit. But we'll break down Matt Stafford here a little bit more. In week 10, he did really good against Washington as he threw 280 yards and 3 touchdowns, no turnovers there. In week 8 against the Colts, he had 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, although he had 2 turnovers. Still a pretty good fantasy day. The week before against Atlanta, 340 yards and a touchdown. He's a man who's produced time in and time out this year. He's had a few off games, last week being one of them, week 9 at Minnesota, one of them. Do not be afraid to start him against the Texans defense this week. Texans D is Vernon Hargreaves back there, and no one really else, and Vernon Hargreaves ain't great, so we know how that goes. And the fantasy input, the outlook on ESPN says, even in a sound win against the Patriots this past week, Houston defense needs negative fantasy results, marking the 5th such performance of the campaign. Guys, negatives in 5 performances this year. You just can't play them, and you could really trust Matt Stafford, man. He's going to gut this defense up. I'm telling you, start Matt Stafford tomorrow. Don't let him say Skew You. Don't leave him on your bench. Travis Fulgham, Rob Gronkowski, Matthew Stafford are these 3 Week 12 edition members of Skew You. Anyways, now we're on to my fantasy studs and duds for Turkey Day, Thanksgiving Day studs and duds. Tones edition. We're going to be looking into some guys tomorrow. In our only 2 games, obviously, we have the Ravens and Steelers canceled for COVID permitting reasons. But real quick here, before we do get into my studs and duds, we actually do have a question that came in from Twitter. Brett from Twitter. How we doing, Brett? We got a question here. Austin Eckler or Antonio Gibson? Well, here I look at this matchup. And I think that Antonio Gibson is playing very good football this year when he does play. And he's running very good. Antonio Gibson's a guy who's getting very good points the past couple of weeks. He's a rookie who's a man on a mission. He gets in the red zone a lot. We like what Antonio Gibson does on the time skew. He's very high in our rankings. We enjoy watching Antonio Gibson play this year. And Austin Eckler's a very good running back, but obviously coming back from a big injury. Kalen Ballage is playing pretty good football back there, so it'll be interesting to see if they try and keep Ballage involved, although Ballage is questionable this week. So is Austin Eckler. He's questionable as well this week. And we're going to dive into Antonio Gibson here. Listen here, Antonio Gibson, guys. Antonio Gibson now has 5 touchdowns in his last 4 games played. 5 touchdowns in his last 4 games. Makes him an absolute must start. Must start. Last week had 100 yards and 16 carries damn near and a touchdown. The week before, 2 touchdowns for 45 yards. The week before that, a little bit of a bad game on the ground as he only had 20 rushing yards for a touchdown, but he did have 35 receiving yards. And then they had their bye week. But the week before their bye week, this man had 20 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown. And then weeks 2 through 4, he had a touchdown in every one of those games. He's been really, really reliable this year. He's been so reliable, in fact, that he's a top 10 fantasy running back in just about every format in every league at this point in time. So you could roll with Antonio Gibson. You could feel comfortable. Austin Eckler, who's questionable this week to begin with. Those hamstring injuries, you always want to see if they'll come back healthy. You want to give it some time before you feel safe playing Austin Eckler. So we'll have to see what happens, but I'm going to Antonio Gibson. He's a running back who's had a good year this year. I'm looking forward to continue watching him play on Turkey Day. He's going to carve up that turkey tomorrow. Back to Thanksgiving Day, studs and duds, Tones edition. Thanks, Brett, for the question. Thank you, Ben Simmons, for the question earlier. Keep your questions coming. We appreciate that. We love having those questions to answer. But anyways, Thanksgiving Day, studs and duds. We have Lions versus Texans at 11:30 Central Time tomorrow on CBS. So this game will be fun, although the records don't indicate that. It will be a fun game. And listen, guys, the Lions are losing ground quick here in the NFC North. If they want any chance of staying in the playoffs, they're going to need this win. And real quick, before I get into the records here, I do want to say something here. Roger Goodell did say if there's any more postponements, there might be 8 playoff teams. So before people write off a lot of these teams, I know the Lions don't look promising, but if it's expanded to 8, you never know. You never know who gets in the dance. The Lions are 4-6, obviously not looking too good. They're last in the NFC North, and the Texans are 3-7 in the AFC. Both are pretty much down and out, but you never know if it does miraculously improve to 8 playoff teams. But nonetheless, my stud for tomorrow's Lions Texans game is kicker Matt Prater of the Detroit Lions. Matt Prater's became an extremely reliable option in his time in Detroit. He was even more reliable in his time in Denver, but with Detroit, he's been good too. Last week, he had no points, obviously. If your offense doesn't get points, you're probably not going to have points. But the week before that, he had 16 points against the Washington football team. He went 3-3 in field goals with 3 extra points. The week before that, 9 points. He also had a couple other 16 and 14 point games this year. So Matt Prater's been pretty reliable, and I trust him to have a big game tomorrow. Matt Stafford's going to have a big game, so I think that benefits both Stafford and Prater himself if they're both able to have big fantasy games. Obviously, I think that means that the Lions offense is doing something right, and that means obviously their defense is probably doing something right. And I think that results in Duke Johnson struggling to get going tomorrow. I mean, I do like that he's a starting running back, so obviously he's going to get his reps. But last week, he didn't get as money as one might think. And to be honest, his production just hasn't been there ever since gaining the role from David Johnson. In a Turkey Day dud, in my opinion, he rushed 10 times for 15 yards last week. And you say, okay, well, he's a PPR guy. Only 3 catches for 20 yards, guys. 3 catches for 20 yards. This guy had 35 yards total last week, really underperformed. The week before at his old team, Cleveland, you think he might be hyped up. As I said, you might think he might be heading into the dog pound all motivated, having a big-ass game, right? 14 carries for 54 yards. The PPR bros, no catches for no yards. So, yeah, this guy has not been reliable at all. The week before that, Jacksonville, 16 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown. Don't buy into Duke Johnson this week. You could officially label him as a fantasy dud heading into Thanksgiving, in my opinion. As we're joined here shortly by our 720 guest, that was a quick 20 minutes. We're about to bring him on. It's the big fella from Arizona, the former German football leaguer. Let me get into this other game real quick here. Washington football team at Dallas Cowboys at 3:30 Central on Fox. I think the stud of the game, I talked about him earlier. Brett's Twitter question. He asked Antonio Gibson or Austin Eckler. My stud of that game tomorrow is Antonio Gibson. I think Gibson's going to do it. I think Gibson's going to speak into existence what I said about him earlier. I think he's going to have a really good game tomorrow and continue his rookie momentum. I mean, this guy has a lot of touchdowns. I think he's going to keep adding to that touchdown total. So that's pretty cool. Tony Pollard, I mean, he had 5 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown last week. People might be a little excited about him as he had 12 points last week. I just don't see anything happening tomorrow. I think Dallas is playing catch-up ball. They're going to have to use Zeke a lot. I don't see Tony Pollard having anywhere near to double digits, let alone the 12 points he had last week. So although Tony Pollard has been proven he's playing a little more, I don't think it results in much tomorrow. So those are my fantasy Thanksgiving Turkey Day duds and studs. Hopefully they help you out. If not, well, better luck next Thanksgiving, I guess. So without further ado, the 7:20 time, once again, you're listening to the Skew Zone, a proud member of the Time Skew podcast. You can find us on timeskew.com. Don't forget to check out timeskew.com/shop for perhaps stocking stuffers and whatnot. But we're about to bring in our man, the myth, the legend, Andy Doe, former German football leaguer, former collegiate football player. He was a hell of an offensive lineman, and then so forth. He went to the same high schools such as Cameron Brate, Owen Daniel, Sean Payton, a couple of really good NFL guys. So without further ado, I won't speak for him anymore. We'll let him speak for himself. Andy from Arizona, AZ Andy.
What's going on?
How you doing, my brother? It's been a while, man.
It's been a while. Reoccurring guest now. Pretty excited.
Yeah, and we got people cheering for you here. They're glad to see you back on. We got a little crowd out there with Joe and the guys, but
Love it.
Yeah, love it. Nonetheless, how you doing this holiday season? And have you circled back this way, or are you stuck in Arizona?
I'm stuck in AZ, man. You like the new nickname, AZ Andy?
I love it. Tampa Tones, AZ Andy. I think this could be a thing, you know?
Let's go. I'm really excited to be on, man. It's I don't think I'll be back in the Illinois area, but representing Arizona for now. Enjoying myself.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Arizona's always got some good temperatures year
We're
round.
winning games.
Yeah, and Arizona Cardinals are winning games. Speaking of the Cardinals, Andy, what's their season been like in a nutshell to this point? I mean, they're winning football games, as you said. Kyler Murray's been playing good football. Cliff Kingsbury's been a good coach to this point. How fun has it been watching the Arizona Cardinals and living in that area?
It's electric right now. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more electric quarterback to watch. So, we're really excited to see the momentum keep on going and see what Cliff does with Kyler.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting to see how that goes. And just to update the people out there, the Arizona Cardinals are right in the thick of things. They're 6-4, third in their division. They're currently the 7th playoff seed, and they hold a game lead over Andy's former Chicago Bears. So that'll be interesting to see how that maps out. Andy, players to look out for in Arizona for potential fantasy teams. If you're making a run for the fantasy playoffs, who's one guy on this Cardinals team you're going to want to own?
I mean, it goes without saying, right? K1. Let's go. I mean, the legs, the arm. It's going to be interesting down the line. I mean, Belichick is really good at pre-gaming and planning against quarterbacks. So let's see next week, New England. Let's see if they throw a spy at him. If they do, I'm thinking Hopkins goes off, Kirk goes off. It's kind of nice to have all these weapons. Even randomly, Andy Isabella could go off. Who knows? It's a fun season when you have all those weapons. And they have a favorable schedule too. So I think they have the Pats next. They have 2 games against the Rams still, but then they have those lovable losers in the Giants and the Eagles. So that's just going to be fun to have and take advantage of those. And I think they have the Niners as well. I think that's a rematch game from COVID. But down the stretch, it's going to be interesting to see how they do and how well they end up and see if they make a huge playoff run. I'd be excited for the whole state of Arizona.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to see. And as Andy kind of said, we'll elaborate on this a minute. Their schedule ends favorable as Week 12. They're at New England. They could easily win that one. Week 13, they play the Rams at home. They could win that one. Week 14, NFC least at the Giants. Week 15, home against Philly. Week 16, home against San Fran. Week 17 is their hardest game at the Rams. That could mean a number of things, including the division. Week 17 should be fun, but from now until week 16, Andy, I'm seeing at least 4 wins in those 5 games. So I agree with you. I think it's a favorable schedule for sure. Thanksgiving football tomorrow, a little bit different here. Segue in from the Cardinals to tomorrow's game.
Sure.
Who are your Thanksgiving Day studs and duds in tomorrow? Name one guy you're looking out to watch in tomorrow just on a football basis, and one guy who you think is kind of a clown between either the Lions or the Texans or the football team or the Cowboys.
Right. I think Zeke is going to go off. Big Zeke guy. Tony Pollard maybe, sharing the load. Let's see what's going on. But absolute losers, the whole team of the Cowboys. I'm not a Cowboys guy. Out here in Arizona, we don't like the Cowboys too much. And for being America's team, I don't think America likes the Cowboys very much either.
Well, let's be honest here, man. I feel like America's team is a term that gets thrown around a little loose nowadays. I mean, I don't know who America's team is anymore. It sure is the Cowboys based on statement, obviously, but it'd be interesting to see. I'd be interested in seeing if, who the most followed team is in America. That'd be interesting to see. But yeah, I don't think anyone likes the Cowboys too much, man. I mean, Troy Aikman announcing football games makes it really hard to like the Cowboys in general. I don't know about you, but
it's terrible. Terrible. Joe Buck and Aikman combination is absolutely brutal. I think McAfee said the other day, announcers need to do better, and I couldn't agree more. I know a previous publication or a competitor publication, no names mentioned, said that asked who the worst fan base is in the NFL, and it was overwhelmingly Philly and the Cowboys. So I mean, that's pretty big. The whole country saying, they're the losers and we don't like their fan base. I can't really say that they're America's team anymore. But just like you said, I'm not sure who that would be. Maybe Arizona. Does Arizona Cardinals want to be America's team? Kyler Murray, let's go.
Do we think Kyler Murray submerges Arizona to be an America's team? I mean, there are a lot of people who live in Arizona. There's a hell of an amount of people that live in Arizona. I mean, I think
the largest city in America, man, Phoenix.
Yeah, I think you could, parade around and try and make the case for that. But if we're being honest here, maybe, with Tom Brady when he was in New England, you would maybe think them. But now, obviously, with Bill Nye the Science Guy running out of ideas and equations there, probably not them. And then you look around, maybe Kansas City with Mahomes, but
could be. You know what? I know who the media's America's team is. That's the Packers. I don't think I've ever heard a bad thing about the Packers, and that's kind of unfair for the rest of the people in the NFC North when everybody just has great things to say about the Green Bay Packers future Jordan Loves of the world. So, by the way, do they play Jordan Love next year? Do they get rid of A-Rod? A-Rod's looking pretty good. Do you get rid of him?
Well, it depends where A-Rod's next girlfriend,
Right.
brings him, I guess. Does she want to stay in Green Bay? Does she want to go he's a cowboy. Does he want to go to California and replace Jimmy Garoppolo?
Right. Could be.
That would be interesting. I
know. And then Jimmy G goes where?
Jimmy G might go back to New England with Billy B.
I'm predicting Jimmy G goes to Chicago.
You think he might?
Eastern Illinois coming back home. Shout out Charleston. All the listeners.
That would be crazy. Yeah, Eastern Illinois, Charleston. Jimmy G, man, I actually ran into a club there once. He actually has a funny tie-in with my brother. Something we probably shouldn't be talking about. But Jimmy G and my brother are kind of submerged in a weird way. But yeah, Jimmy G back to the Bears would be cool. I think they could use it. And that's actually funny you mentioned that, as our guest down the line a little bit later is Zach Buss from the Bears. He's our Bears contributor. So we'll be getting into quarterback situations. Andy, one last thing. I'll ask you a couple more questions. One of the big ones I want to ask you here real quick. I put together a conspiracy theory a little bit. The Bears might be looking for new management. They might be looking for a new quarterback. They might be looking for a new coach. We know Harbaugh at Michigan might be out. We know who Harbaugh coached in college at Stanford, Andrew Luck. We know whose dad. We know whose dad just operated the XFL, and Oliver Luck.
Wow.
Do we think we could see the first ever father-son GM quarterback combination with Harbaugh in the middle as a glue to that connection?
First and foremost, I would absolutely love that. That's insane. I've never heard that. You heard it here first. Tones on the alert. Be ready for theatrics in Chicago, that's for sure. I know you're going to bring on your Chicago guy, but man, I just don't see them getting rid of Pace. It's the reports that he's kind of tied in with the McCaskies. We'll see the quarterback. Whoever the quarterback is, he'll drive an old Toyota Camry, that's for sure.
Real quick, what if it's Aaron Rodgers down the line? I know it's been a joke, but Aaron Rodgers would be a hell of a fit for the Bears, and if the Packers kind of did force him out the door, what better revenge would it be than to get to play the Packers twice a year?
Look, the Packers and Rodgers are doing great right now, and I know that Rodgers is feeling pretty good about being a Packer, but he's a competitive guy, and I think after the season, he's still going to remember how they did him in the draft. So, he's a guy that remembers. He's a smart guy. He's going to remember that they picked JL Jordan Love for the future. First round pick. That's a pretty big deal. It's something that obviously the Cardinals did very well at, and the Bears did not do very well at. So we'll see. I mean, here's the thing, man. The Packers are just known for producing quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. Let's see if it happens. It might be a dark age in Green Bay for the first time in a while, and I don't think anybody but the media would be more than happy about that. So.
Yeah, and I know we're throwing out some hot takes, some hypotheticals here, but it would be interesting for sure. I mean, Aaron Rodgers at one point in time, he's going to look around, Jordan Love from Utah State, who plays tomorrow on Thanksgiving, by the way, but Jordan Love is going to be the Packers quarterback. They spent the first round pick on him one way or another in the coming years. We've seen it from Favre to Rodgers. We're going to see it from Rodgers to Jordan Love. So the question is eventually, Aaron Rodgers is going to look around. Aaron Rodgers is going to say, hey, I see Phillip Rivers. I see Tom Brady having this success elsewhere. I see Alex Smith having success elsewhere with the Chiefs. And now, he's competing in Washington off a horrific surgery.
Yeah.
He's going to look years back and say Brett Favre still competed in New York and Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers is going to go somewhere. To be determined. So that'll be interesting to see. Andy, thanks for jumping on. Any last thoughts on this Black Wednesday? Any last thoughts about football, or any last thoughts about Turkey Day in general?
You know what? Be safe, everybody. Eat well, and let's have some good times with some football, man. I mean, it's one less game than provided with the Ravens and Steelers being rescheduled, but I guess let's take advantage of watching some NFC least.
Yeah, and as Andy said, we get one less game with that Steelers-Ravens game getting postponed with COVID, but we have the NFC least, we have a morning game, we have 2 college football games. At least we got 4 games of pigskin, although none are great opponents. Andy,
by the way, real quick, Washington football team needs to be the Washington Pigskins. I don't know why they haven't considered that. Wow. That needs to be the name. They can keep the skins. They're already dressed as pigs in the stands. Give me some free gear, Washington football team, if you guys pick it. If not, go to my store and buy my future Washington Pigskins gear. Might be on the Time Skewed shop. Who knows? We'll be talking.
Yeah, we'll be talking. We might have Andy Doer's own shirt. You never know. The Pigskins. Hey, you heard a lot of hot takes tonight. The Washington Pigskins would certainly be a lovely hot take to have. So, Andy, once again, great idea. I love it. You're a man of many of them. You're a man of a million ideas. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Towns. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was Andy Doe. Andy Doe, former German football player, now resident of Arizona. College football guy. We got Zach Buswaden. But real quick, man, I love talking to Andy. For those of you who don't know, me and Andy go way back, and he's always just an enjoyable, jolly guy. He's an enjoyable, jolly guy who just knows football. He loves football. He played offensive line, defensive line. One of the best guys around, one of the greatest guys there are. So really thankful to be able to get Andy's time. Andy, hope you have a tremendous Thanksgiving. As Zach Bus is waiting real quick here, we're going to bring him in here shortly. But first, we got a question from Bambo. What up, Bambo? Bambo asks, Ahmed or Pittman at flex? If Gio Bernard doesn't play, and if Gaskin plays, do I run him at flex over these 3? So this is kind of a question that's pretty backloaded. It kind of depends on the outcome of several things. But if I were to say, I'm going to bust it down, is this Giovanni Bernard is listed as questionable. Obviously, Joe Mixon is on IR, but Giovanni Bernard's injury is severe. It's a concussion. It's something to watch. So if he's not cleared in time, it's not good. Tre'Juan Williams and Samjay Perine would probably be in charge for bulk of the carry. So if I'm you, Gio Bernard has a concussion, I'm going to add Samjay Perine. He has NFL experience. I think that he gets the carries if Giovanni Bernard can't go in that one. Salvin Ahmed is questionable as well. So, man, a lot of banged up injuries. Ahmed didn't practice on Wednesday. He only had 12 carries. He did produce at 43 yards and 5 catches for 31 yards last week. But if Myles Gaskin comes back, I just think this is it's a bunch of talented running backs, but they're all banged up. They're all brittled and they're all injury riddled right now. It's a tough one. Man, I don't know. I can't see myself going with anyone other than Michael Pittman Jr. right now, to be honest, because they designated Gaskin to return this week, but there's no guarantee that Myles Gaskin returns. And even if Gaskin does return, will he play more than Ahmed? I think if Giovanni Bernard plays, you go him. If Giovanni Bernard doesn't play, I'm going with Michael Pittman Jr. over either of the Dolphins running backs. We do have more fantasy questions pouring in. We'll get to those in a little bit. We're going to go with Zach here. Zach, we're going to get him in here. Zach Buss is joining us, the Chicago Bears contributor for the Time Skew pod. We do have a few more questions, but first off, we're going to bring in Zach. Go check out Zach's content at timeskewpod.com. Look up the Chicago Bears. It's all from this man. It's all great stuff. Zach, thanks again for joining another Wednesday. That goes quick. How we doing tonight?
Doing well. Relaxing day. How about you?
Yeah, pretty relaxed and pretty chill. It's already Wednesday. I feel like the weeks go quick in the football season, not as quick outside of football. I hate that, man. It's already week 12. We're flying through things.
I know it.
Yeah, so anyways, we're going to get into Thanksgiving. We're going to talk some fantasy, but real quick, I want to pick your brain. Now that we have the Bears coming back, last week we talked about this nerve-wracking upcoming Sunday night football game, which means so much for not only Coach Nagy, but the Chicago Bears team in general. Who will be starting at QB for the Bears this week, in your opinion? I know Foles is banged up. Trubisky's trying to come back from an injury. They have Tyler Bray. They worked out DeShone Kizer. Who are we going to get here for the Bears quarterback? I guess Trubisky is healthy. They're saying he was a full participant in today's practice.
Yeah, it's likely to be Trubisky, I think. And even if Nick Foles wasn't injured, like there is an argument to make to start Mitch as well. A lot of our issues have been offensive line play, and with a terrible offensive line, it's one way you can get around that a little bit is with a mobile quarterback, and that's what Mitchell Trubisky is. And when Nick Foles is in the pocket, he has good pocket patience and awareness, but he looks like he's walking through mud whenever he's trying to escape it. He can't avoid sacks, and defenders are getting to him instantly. So my guess is Trubisky for sure.
Yeah, and Trubisky was 2-0 as the Bears starting quarterback to begin the year, including a week 1 game in which you said he was mobile a lot of the time. He escaped pressure. He threw for 242 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, ran for 26 yards on 3 carries, had 24 fantasy points. The next week against the Giants, they got an ugly win, but still a win, threw for 190, 2 touchdowns, ran 4 for 16, but he did throw 2 interceptions. And then week 3 against Atlanta, they ended up winning. He technically started that game and got the win, although he got benched. So he is 3-0 as a starter this season. And then kind of when Nick Foles came in, that is kind of when they started falling off the rails a little bit. I'm not saying it's all on him. Their schedule did get incredibly hard as they played Indianapolis and they played Tampa Bay. Then at Carolina, that was a nice 2-game winning streak, but then they had losses against the Rams, New Orleans, Tennessee, Minnesota. They stacked up in a hurry. What was that turning point in your opinion? What was so pivotal about Nick Foles coming in and kind of creating a 4-game losing streak at one point in time?
Yeah. So, I mean, with the past 2 years in Matt Nagy's offense, it's been Mitchell Trubisky, and it's been unsuccessful. And then in that Falcons game where, Mitch started and Foles ended up coming in, it was a pretty ugly pick that Trubisky threw that was the cause of that. And we put Foles in, and honestly, like you said, Mitch Trubisky's technically 3-0 as a starter, but without putting Foles in, we would have lost that Atlanta game for sure. Trubisky actually hadn't looked as bad to start the year as he did in 2019, and it was kind of surprising when he did get benched. And after that game, or I guess half a game from Foles in Atlanta, it almost looked like he was our savior. But again, that was against Atlanta's defense. And since then, I guess we've kind of gotten to the point where we realize it's not a quarterback issue, or it is, but there's more than one thing. There's a lot of gears that turn to make this work, and a couple of them are broken, including the quarterback play, including O-line play, and scheme as a whole, honestly.
Yeah, and the Bears have no offensive linemen who are even like playing good football right now. Honestly, it's hard to watch a guy. I know there's a couple. Daniels, he got hurt early on, and Whitehair and whatnot. But there's just no guys that you look at on that Bears offensive line if you're a fan of another team and think, I wish that guy was on my team. So I think you're right. It's multiple factions of the game, which equate to bad quarterback play, perhaps, because I don't know what's going on, but Nick Foles did have signs of life, perhaps, against Tennessee. He threw for 335 yards and 2 touchdowns in that loss, but then last week he came back, 106, no touchdowns, interception. I think it's time to go to Trubisky. I think it's time to try and create a spark in this Bears team. You have nothing to lose at this point. You know Nick Foles, his ceiling is not that high, and his floor is turnovers, bad quarterback play. At this point in time, I don't trust Nick Foles with that. This being said, Zach, huge game, Sunday night, rivalry night, Bears-Packers. Oh, man. I know Bears fans are nervous. I know Packers fans are excited. Obviously, that's no jurisdiction of the outcome. Is it still a heated Sunday night game? Are the Bears still amped up, or you think the Bears are kind of, all right, guys, you think they're down in the dumps? You don't think they're too excited for this one?
No, I mean, this team has so much passion. That's one thing that is, stuck and has rung true this entire time with Nagy. He gets the locker room amped and energetic. They come to play every single week. At least the defense does. I'll say that. So I'm sure that they want to win this game. The actual players more than anybody else wants them to.
Yeah, and their defense always does come to play, especially that game against Tampa Bay. They came up clutch. They had a really big game, and they made Tom Brady forget what down it was even at one point. Their defense continues to make plays. They got Khalil Mack out there. They got other monsters like Kyle Fuller. And guys, I just want to ask you one question before we focus on fantasy tomorrow quick. Eddie Jackson, I heard at the beginning of the week, he was questionable, maybe being on the COVID list. Any update on Andy Jackson? What's his outlook looking like for Sunday?
Yeah, I think that was in regard to him being in close contact with somebody who tested positive for COVID. I'm guessing that he's going to be able to play as long as he's tested negative. But I guess we'll just have to see in the coming days what that test will be like, because that would be a huge loss to this defense. Especially if the offensive woes continue. Eddie Jackson's a guy who's known to be able to put up points defensively. So if we're looking for a miracle, that's the type of guy that we'd want to go to.
Yeah, and Eddie Jackson, man, he's a competitor when he's out there. A safety who's came in the league a couple of years back and really took the league by storm. One of the premier safeties who's kind of under the radar. He doesn't really get the love he deserves. He would be a key loss. A couple teams are battling this key COVID stuff right now. It's really tough to see. Real quick here, Thanksgiving Day duds and studs fantasy. Give one guy you like tomorrow and give one guy you don't like tomorrow. In either game, who do you like, who do you don't like?
For my stud, I'm going to go with Marvin Jones Jr., actually. With Kenny Golladay out, I think that makes a huge difference. When Golladay is out, Marvin Jones Jr. averages about 13.5 points. When Galladay's in, he averages less than 9. So a pretty big difference. Houston is also 23rd in points allowed to wide receivers per game with almost 40 per game. So I think I would definitely fire Marvin Jones Jr.
Yeah, before last week's stud at Carolina, which in theory, Marvin Jones had a touchdown. It did get called back. He did catch one in the end zone, and it got called back on a penalty. But in weeks 8 through 10, he had 4 touchdowns, and he had 96 receiving yards in one game, 43 in one, 40 in one, and he had at least 1 touchdown in all those games, 2 in one of those games. So if that touchdown counted last week, he'd be a touchdown machine right now. I think people could feel safe. with Marvin Jones. As I endorsed Matt Stafford, so that's a good sign for Marvin Jones. And like you said, without Kenny Golladay, his game improves greatly. So fans are thinking, oh, Kenny Galladay's there. Well, Kenny Galladay's out tomorrow. He's been ruled out with a hip. He was officially ruled out at 3 o'clock today. So there you go. Kenny Golladay is out. And who's your dud for tomorrow, Zach? Who is your dud?
My dud, you stole him actually. It was Duke Johnson. Just to go over or to reiterate some of the points you made about him. Houston does not use their running backs very much. He's been averaging less than 3 yards per carry in the couple of games since David Johnson's been out. The only thing that's good about this matchup is the Lions have a terrible run defense, but Houston's running back situation is about as bad as the Lions defense is. We're pretty much looking at when a stoppable force meets a movable object right now. But I would definitely stay away from him. He's averaged, I think, about 6 points the last couple of games when Yahoo's projecting him to be at 15. I actually lost my fantasy matchup this week because of him. Should have put in Amari Cooper, but I didn't trust the revolving door of the quarterback situation there. So.
Yeah, it's hard to trust. And real quick here, Duke Johnson in ESPN PPR format, or in non-PPR formats, I'm sorry, but he started for 3 weeks now, and he's still, over the entire year, you'd think his average points per game would increase. He still only averages 4.4 points per game, and that's with 3 starts under his belt. Man, I don't know that Zach, I agree with you. He's my dud too. Zach, real quick, any last thoughts about football or Thanksgiving tomorrow? Thanks for being able to join us on this Black Wednesday.
No, I'm just excited for Thanksgiving tomorrow. Gonna be some good football to watch. Wish the Steelers game was on, but unfortunately that got canceled. And bear down. We need a dub this week, so.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that the best game of the night in theory is canceled. But hey, the first 2 games are the tradition. They could be magic. About 8 to 10 years ago, we didn't have that third game, so we are thankful. And we have 2 college games tomorrow, I guess, so we'll incorporate those. Zach, thanks for joining us so much. Hopefully, we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so everybody, that's Zach. That is our Bears contributor, or Chicago Bears TimeSkew contributor. You could go catch him on timeskew.com. You could go follow him on Twitter too. Look up Zach Bussey, and you could find him on Twitter. We're going to answer some more questions quick before we bring in Steven. We're just going to answer one, and then we'll go to Steven with the Jaguars, and then we'll come back to questions. So thanks for the patience, Steven. We're just going to answer one here quick. We got a question coming in from the host of Cleve and Me, Joseph Areola. How we doing, my man? Brother from another mother. The Cleve and Me podcast, you can find them at Cleve and Me. They're a wrestling-based podcast. 2 great guys who love wrestling. Just an enjoyable time. Joseph wants to know, who do you think wins the NFC East and why? Cleveland, the co-host of Cleve and Me, their podcast, is actually a Dallas Cowboys fan, so this is an interesting question. The NFC least. My prediction, the Washington football team, and I say that because of coaching. I think Ron Rivera is the best head coach right now of the 4, honestly. I think Doug Peterson is too stubborn. I think he should make some adjustments, which he isn't making. And I think that the Giants, I just don't think they're ready. I think Daniel Jones is not ready to compete at that level. I don't think he's a division winner quite yet. Joe Judge just got in a fight with an offensive line coach, so I don't know if he could handle the tension, if he can't even handle a conversation with an offensive line coach. I don't have faith in the Giants at all. The Cowboys, they're sneaky here as Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy's the coach who's won a Super Bowl before. This guy, you never sleep on Big McCarthy. Mike McCarthy can take this team to the promised land. I'm not saying he will, because I think the Washington and Ron Rivera is the favorites right now. A lot of Cowboys fans and a lot of Cowboys players talking down on Mike McCarthy. But you seen the big guy on the sideline last week. He was fired up. He was having a good time. He was laughing. And they won against Minnesota, a very hot football team on the road. So I think the division ends up shaking out with Washington on top, Cowboys second. Going to be a fun race between those two. I just think Carson Wentz every week. I think they're going to get it together. He continues to play bad football, and I just still don't take the Giants seriously without their best player, Saquon Barkley. They're holding out Golden Tate for weird reasons. They're firing offensive line coaches. I think Joe Judge has a little more going on his mind than trying to win the NFC East. I'm going with Washington or Dallas. And honestly, whoever wins tomorrow's game wins the division. I'm going to say that. Whoever wins tomorrow's game will be a half-game lead in the division, and they're going to win it. I don't think Eagles win on Monday night against Seattle. So, in theory, I think whoever wins tomorrow's game controls their own destiny. I think Washington might sneak away with one. Joseph, thanks for your question. We do have a couple more, and we'll get to those shortly. But first, we're going to bring in Steven. Steven, our Jaguars contributor. He's a great one. He's also a contributor on the Armchair Quarterback Show. Here we are. Steven, how are we doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining me on another Wednesday. That was a quick week, a quick turnaround. Where can the people follow you at on Twitter?
Texas Trosh. It's Trosch.
Love it. And is that a Vaughn jersey in the background, actually?
That is a Ricky Vaughn jersey.
Wow, I love that, man. That is some classic memorabilia right there. Shout out to Ricky Vaughn. Shout out to that. That's a beautiful piece. Anyways, thanks for joining us. And Steven, who will finish the season is at quarterback in Jacksonville now that Mike Glennon is in? Mike Glennon has officially resurfaced. The rookie from Oregon State, Lutton, got benched. Gardner Minshew is still trying to come back from an injury. Things are getting ugly there quick. Glennon's coming in now. We haven't seen him in a couple years. Is he going to finish the season as a starter, or is Minshew going to resolve on the surface eventually?
It all depends on Minshew's health. I mean, we've seen enough of Mike Glennon over the years to know he's not the answer in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jaguars fans would rather have Blaine Gabbert at this point. But yeah, I mean, like Luton really didn't do much the last 2 weeks. I mean, he actually had two of the worst games in recent memory, almost Nathan Peterman bad, but I think it's just going to be all dependent on Minshew's health. I mean, even before he got injured, he was actually improving upon last year. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be a franchise quarterback, but he was far and away the best quarterback that this team's had since probably David Garrard or Byron Leftwich. Honestly, like one thing, Mark Long, he's a writer for the Jaguars, he pointed out this morning, just kind of like the whole sequence of events. So basically it started out, Glennon got benched for Trubisky in Chicago, who got benched for Foles, who got benched for Gardner Minshew, who got replaced by Luton, who is now getting benched for Glennon. It's kind of just coming full circle.
Yeah, full circle. I heard that one earlier somewhere, and I thought, damn, like that's a lot to transpire. It does come full circle. I guess that's what happens when a bunch of mediocre quarterbacks perhaps are shuffled around between a couple of teams. Although Nick Foles does have a Super Bowl, so hats off to him for that. But anyways, yeah, I think that's good insight on Luton, and it's a shame on him as he did come out firing a little bit. They played Green Bay tough, but his stats are just ugly. It was time to move on. And I think that Doug Marrone actually tried to keep winning games because he knows Mike Glennon was bad, so he went with the unknown. You never know if the rookie could win you a game, provide a spark. That didn't happen. So now he's still trying to win games. I think he's panicking for his job in a quarterback move when Minshew's not ready. I don't think this quarterback's going to help him, though, too much. I agree with you. So that pretty much answers this. And instead of most relevant fantasy QB on the team moving forward, that I was going to ask you, who do you think is the most relevant player besides Robinson, their running back, on this Jacksonville team moving forward? Now that Mike Glennon's taken over, does it disrupt the wide receivers? Does it disrupt the tight end core?
I mean, the tight ends weren't really that fantasy relevant anyway. They really were never too involved in the game plan. Really the only consistent, if you want to, use that word, contributor this season has really been Keelan Cole. I mean, like DJ Chark has been so hit or miss. I mean, it's important for the Jaguars to have him on the field so they can kind of stretch things out and get some attention off the other receivers. But Keelan Cole's really been the only somewhat consistent producer. And I mean, he's probably gone at the end of the year because I don't see them giving him a nice contract.
Yeah, Keelan Cole's probably going to leave at year's end, I assume, because they're not going to try and keep him. I think a lot of people can go scoop Keelan Cole and have him help you make a way for the playoffs. And Chark didn't even participate in practice today the way Jacksonville's going. Keelan Cole might be by far the number one receiver to own if they do decide to hold Chark out, if they continue to perhaps try and tank. So go get Keelan Cole. You heard it here first. Go get him. And other than that, in tomorrow's games, Thanksgiving Day games, we've been doing this all night. Thanksgiving Day duds, Thanksgiving Day studs. Who is one stud, who is one dud in these games tomorrow that you're looking out for? Who are you avoiding in a dud, and who are you telling guys, hey, go start this guy, he's going to be a stud?
I think, from what I've been hearing, and I'm pretty sure this is a pretty big consensus, Duke Johnson's going to be the dud tomorrow. He just really hasn't been able to do much in the absence of David Johnson. He had, against Jacksonville, he had, close to 17 points, but that came off of a touchdown and 4 catches. He was only rushing for about 2.5 yards to carry that game. Really hasn't improved too much on there. He's at 54 and 15 yards since then. It is a pretty weak Detroit rush defense, but ever since Romeo Crennel took over, it's been the Deshaun Watson show. So, it's definitely – I'm not even looking at him at all the rest of the season. Breaks my heart as a Hurricanes fan, but he just hasn't shown he has it this year. And sticking with the same team, I want to go – my stud for tomorrow is going to be Jordan Akins. So we have Kenny Stills and Randall Cobb out tomorrow. In the last game against the Patriots, he had 6 targets with 5 catches for 83 yards. He's been a consistent producer when he's been healthy all season. I think that with those 2 receivers out, some of those targets are going to be funneled to the tight end position. And especially if you're playing on DraftKings or FanDuel tomorrow, he should be one of the lower-owned options. So, if you can try to do whatever you can to get him in your lineup, could make the difference. Because, especially with Baltimore and Pittsburgh off the slate, most lineups are going to look pretty similar. So, he's a good route to go to try to mix things up and make your lineup unique.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Here's your fantasy studs, fantasy duds for tomorrow. There are a couple injuries in each game that are going to impact this one. We'll have to keep an eye on a guy like DeAndre Swift. Is he going to play? I think that's a very good one. Do you know do you know the percentage of leagues he's actually owned in, your fantasy stud for tomorrow by chance? Were you able to get a percentage of leagues he's owned in?
I was not. I can go check that really quickly. I'm pretty sure it's under 20%. He's been relatively unowned all season.
Man, that would be – I'd love it if he goes off tomorrow. Then people could be like, oh, well, he told me to. Steven told me to start him. I hope that people do start him. Hey, I hope he gets a couple touchdowns. That would be great for fantasy owners that do listen.
Yep. In Yahoo leagues, he is currently rostered in 3% of leagues.
3% of leagues. And what's his projection looking like tomorrow?
So tomorrow they have the projection at 8 points.
Okay, 8 points, and obviously these aren't all that accurate, but that does show that they do have some faith in him. They think he's going to make some noise. We obviously think he's going to do a lot better than that. So that is interesting. I think that Duke Johnson has been a lot of people are naming him as their dud for tomorrow. Something must be in the air with Duke Johnson, which is sad. I had high hopes for him when he went to Houston. They really haven't used him too much. So, Steven, any last thoughts quick about fantasy, about football, or about Thanksgiving Day in general?
It sucks that we lost the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. Even with the injuries, that game is just always fun. It's super physical, super competitive. But, I'm just ready for a good day of football. We have that Houston-Detroit game in the morning, Washington-Dallas, like you mentioned before. That could be very well be that game could decide the NFC East. And it's just I'm just ready for some fun.
Yeah, we're ready for some fun. We're ready for a good day of football, food, family, and friends. I'm looking forward to hopefully 2 competitive NFL games and a couple competitive college games tomorrow with Steelers and Ravens getting canceled. At least we still have 4 games of the pigskin, 2 college, 2 NFL. We'll get into the college quickly in a little bit later. We got more questions pouring in. Steven, thanks so much for joining us again. Hopefully you could join us again next Wednesday.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. And that is our wonderful Jacksonville Jaguars contributor on timeskew.com. You can find him by looking at Jaguars in the Timeskew archives. He does all our tremendous Jaguars work over there. A lot of good fantasy football work as well. So between fantasy, Jacksonville, this guy does it all. Go over there, check out his work at timeskew.com. We're going to answer a couple more questions here. Not all of them. We're going to come back to them in a little bit. We got some more segments of the show first, but we'll answer one or two here quick. We got one coming in from Travis Harrison. Travis, how you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight in the Skew Zone. Thanks for stepping in. Travis Harrison asked the Skew Zone, start 2 wide receivers, Ridley, Jefferson, Godwin, Parker, and add 1 flex, adding in CEH and Duke. Well, I'll tell you what, Travis, if you've been listening, if you stuck with us, you can tell Duke Johnson no. And I know CEH has a tough matchup. I know CEH is at the Buccaneers, but I would still start him over Duke Johnson. I think Duke Johnson's CEH is a superior play of the two. Duke Johnson just hasn't done much lately to prove otherwise. In my opinion, I'd lean CEH there. Start 2 wide receivers. I would go with Chris Godwin, and I would go with Calvin Ridley. If plays, which he will, he's looking decent. Godwin and Ridley, I think you got to go with the big names there. Jefferson is too up and down as a rookie. He had a big drop last week. And Parker, we're not sure how he's going to look with Tua. So thanks, Travis. I'm going with Godwin. I'm going with Ridley, and I'm going with CEH. I'm going with my big guns. Next up, we got It's Fragger. What's up, buddy? How you doing? He asked, right now, I have Zeke at flex and Kareem Hunt at running back. Should I start Zeke at running back and then start Devontae Parker at my flex? No, I think you're doing it right. I think that Zeke and Kareem in your lineup are good. Those are your big guns. They're going to more likely to find their end zone than Devontae Parker, and as I said, we'll see how Devontae Parker does with Tua. Tua and him aren't on the same page, although he does have a couple touchdowns with Tua. The catches and yards aren't there. We know Tua is starting again, although he's a little banged up. But I'm still going with Zeke. I'm still going with Kareem Hunt. I think you're doing the right thing, especially in a PPR league. These 2 running backs could catch a lot of footballs coming out of the backfield. I'm going with Zeke. I'm going with Kareem Hunt. I'm not really thinking about Devontae Parker in this 3 equation. I think you're pretty safe with those 2, Zeke and Kareem. Thanks so much. It's Fragger for the question. Again, we have more questions coming in. We'll get to them in a little bit. We don't have too much longer, but we will take all the questions we get asked. I just want to go over, since the Ravens-Steelers got postponed, some college football Turkey Day game previews real quick before we get to more questions here. We've had some great ones tonight. Thanks so much. We've had some great guests as well. We have 1 p.m. Central Time, Colorado State, who's 1-2 at Air Force 2-2. This is a matchup of the Mountain West. It's a good matchup, although these teams are struggling. Air Force is -5.5. The over-under is 55 for you gamblers out there. I personally like Air Force in this one. I always like the military teams, but on Thanksgiving Day, Air Force is home. I'm going with Air Force. Kickoff is expected. Like I said, 1 Central, it's going to be 45-degree temperature, and it's going to be on CBS Sports Network. So a lot of us can watch that. And players to watch out for in that one, according to ESPN, is Trey McBride of Colorado State, who has 17 receptions for 270 yards and 4 scores on the year. And then Brad Roberts of Air Force, who has 38 carries for 280 yards and 4 scores on the year on the ground. So that is Air Force and Colorado State. Once again, they kick off at 1 p.m. tomorrow, Thanksgiving. I'm glad there's college football on in this Mountain West matchup. 1 p.m. Central Time, CBS Sports Network. Catch Colorado State at Air Force. Once again, take Air Force spread. And I like the over in that one. I'll go with as well. And then at 6 p.m. Central, I guess it's now the proclaimed night game, the night matchup without Ravens and Steelers. Buckle in, 6 p.m. Central. We got a doozy. We got New Mexico, who's 0-4 at Utah State. Jordan Love's ex-alum, 0-4. The battle of the 0-4s, Mountain West. At least we got night football on Thanksgiving, right? Better than nothing. No Ravens Steelers, obviously, but it is some football. New Mexico is -6.5, and the over-under is 5. 51.5. If it's 5, that'd be crazy. Maybe that's a over-under on their combined win total this season. If I was a betting man, I would take Utah State with the points in this one. I think Utah State getting 6.5 is the play here, and I like the over in this one as it's only 51.5. I think that's very doable, although it's going to be chilly, 36-degree temperature at kickoff tomorrow, and this one kicks off on Fox Sports 1. As I said, it's 6 Central. This is our Thanksgiving night football game. Be on the lookout for New Mexico and Utah State. Players to watch out, according to ESPN, players to watch to have a big game. Bobby Cole, the running back in New Mexico, is 45 carries for 255 yards and 1 touchdown this season. And Jordan Kress, wide receiver, New Mexico as well. 2 guys from New Mexico. He's 12 receptions for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. You kind of expected Utah State to rebuild after losing Jordan Love, who is a first-round quarterback at the end of the day. So that is the college football slate for Thanksgiving. It is cool to have Mountain West play these games. Thank you to the Mountain West. If we didn't have the Mountain West playing tomorrow, we'd only get 2 Thanksgiving pigskin games. We wouldn't have something to put on the night. Now we at least have Mountain West games to throw on right alongside these other Thanksgiving games. So that'll be good. That's good for Thanksgiving in general. Real quick here, we are updating our store for the holidays. As said earlier, for the holiday season, we have added things to our stores, stocking stuffers and more. Be sure to get your holiday merch at timeskew.com/shop today. Some great stocking stuffers such as face masks and coffee mugs, along with great gear to keep you warm with pullover hoodies and crew neck sweatshirts. Find this and more fantasy football gear today and use promo code STREAM to save 10%. Stream saves 10%. You can't beat that. So Stream saves 10% at checkout. Once again, that is at timeskew.com. Go in, get your holiday gear. Get that today. Stream saves 10% at checkout. There it is. Go get your parents something. Go get your family something. They're going to love it. I swear, I assure to you, this merch is comfy. I have a pullover. It's very comfy. We have plenty of great podcasts as well on the TSPN network. As I said, Fugazi Sports, Chain Clankers, Cleve and Me, Big Rican, Cardboard and Cracker Jacks, Bucketeers, Armchair QB, Time Skew Pod. We have a lot of good ones. Go check them out. I always say go check them out. Let's get some more questions here. Once again, Stream saves 10%. Timeskew.com/shop. Get your holiday needs. You will not be disappointed. It's a great deal. Can't be disappointed. So once again, timeskew.com/shop. Save 10% by using code STREAM. We got another fantasy question that just poured in from Controversial. What do you think of Taysom Hill losing tight end eligibility? However, I'm choosing to keep him in the tight end slot. He will accrue points per ESPN. That is interesting. If he does accrue points and keeping him in the tight end spot, that's a loophole, I guess. I don't know. I don't blame ESPN for yanking his tight end eligibility. I think they're being very fluid with this situation. I think they're looking at it week to week and saying, what could we do to make it fair? I think that they made the right move for now. Obviously, if Drew Brees comes back, obviously if Taysom doesn't play as much quarterback, then sure, then maybe he should lose his quarterback eligibility again and gain that tight end eligibility back. But for now, perhaps they have the right call. But man, if you could get away with that, if you could have him in your tight end spot, if you could just keep him in your tight end spot forever, that might be the way to go, as he is the greatest fantasy tight end of all time. He's going to throw, he's going to catch, he's going to run, he's going to do everything, right? It's Taysom Hill, the gadget man, the Mr. Gadget man for sure. So that's great. Once again, and before we head out here, Pride, my main man, just put out a doozy today. Everybody go check it out on Twitter. You could find it by going to Pride's account, going to my account. I just retweeted it. Pride, great work as always. His article is kickers to pick up for your fantasy playoff run. Pride loves kickers. If you go to our store, you'll know why we love kickers too, as we have some kicker merchandise. Fantasy kickers do matter. Pride said, listen, I know not everyone cares about kickers, but every point is crucial this late in the season. So if you're unhappy with your kicker, check out my article where I list some guys you can pick up right now from your waiver wire. Pride, great job, my man. Go check out his article. Guys, we're out of questions. It looks like we're going to do it, barring any last-minute questions here. Thanks again for all the questions, the interactions tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Time Skew is thankful for you. Happy Thanksgiving. We couldn't do it without you guys. You guys do great. You keep us motivated. Enjoy the 4Fs, family, friends, food, and football. Continue to be safe in these scary times. A lot of stuff's going on right now. A lot of violence is up. A lot of COVID stuff is up. It's a scary world we're living in. Please be safe. Please be thankful. Catch us next Wednesday in the Skew Zone. Same spot, same time, same place, 7 to 8-ish Central Time in the PM on Time Skew's YouTube or on StreamYard. Guys, thanks so much for joining me in the Skew Zone. I'm Tampa Tones. You can find me on Twitter at TrickyTonesBGTE. Find me on Instagram at TonesA-Lister. Find my podcast, Bucketeers, on Twitter at Bucketeers. Find my podcast, Cardboard and Cracker Jacks, at Cracker Jacks Pod, Instagram, Twitter. I'm Tampa Tones. I'm out. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for the Fantasy Football Kickoff Show. Hell yeah. Let's kick some ass tomorrow.